kick it off and wanted to welcome you all formally. And it's lovely to have you join us here on our Wellbeing at Home session. If you, there's a lot of familiar names and faces here and people who've been with us from day one. We've been doing this for over 3 years now. I can't believe it. Where has the time gone? I don't know. We started doing these Wellbeing at Homes during lockdown, and it was just so interesting, and we had such amazing speakers come along that I decided to continue with it, because I love just sharing this information and allowing people to share their knowledge and wisdom with everyone. And it's just, I think, such an empowering, we have such empowering conversations because it allows us to really take in the knowledge of these people who have trained in their specific fields, and for us to empower our own selves with our own well-being. So if you haven't been before, welcome. It's good to have you here. If you have been before, welcome back. So lovely to see you. And if you want to catch up with any of our previous recordings, you can find them on the Wellbeing at Home website. You just have to sign up to that. Or you can pop over to the Wellbeing Escapes YouTube channel, and most of them are there. So before we kick it off with Patience is streaming from our Chiva Som in Thailand. And Chiva Som is probably one of the most established health resorts in the world. They've been around for a long time. I think 25 years, 30 years. I can't remember the exact figure. Patience, do you know?
I think it's nearly 30 years.
30 years, yeah. So they're one of the first. They opened in Thailand, and almost 30 years ago. So they really do know what they're doing. They're very established. I call them the grandfather of all kind of destination spas, because they've evolved over the years, and they have, because of that, they're very luxurious. They're like top luxury level, but because of that, they also have the best experts there, and they attract wonderful practitioners there, and because they're so high up in our industry. So we're very honored to have Patience join us and to have Chiva Som represented in this. And before we start, let's just start our Saturday morning in a dreamy way, and let's share the Chiva Som video so we can all kind of dream that we're there this morning. So I'll just do that now. It's not very long, it's a few minutes, and we'll just share that. Oh, hang on, I just need to share, because share screen. Can you hear it? No, you can't hear it?
Not really, no.
Okay. We'll just watch it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. They did a big refurb, so that was their they did it like a huge investment in refurbing the place. So that was their video kind of reintroducing it. But oh wow, it's dreamy. It's dreamy. um, okay, so patience.
Hi,
Lovely.
Stella.
Hi, lovely to have you with us. I'm so delighted that you're here. And I was telling Patience last time I spoke to her, her name is such a wonderful name, isn't it? To be called Patience. Tell us why your parents called you Patience. I love that story. Come on, tell us.
Not much of a story. My mom told me this version, so I don't feel like I have the full story, but she said that she just wanted patience during the marriage, and so she decided to name me Patience. And she said she named me in French, so I always feel bougie, like no, it's pronounced patience. You know? Yeah,
So
same spelling.
Patience, not patient, but it's also lovely for you to remember that virtue, right? Like every time someone
Right.
name, you remember to be patient. I think I should be called Patience because I'm very impatient. So I rename myself. But thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, you know, where you're from, how you got into naturopathy, why you got into naturopathy, and how you ended up in Thailand.
Okay. So about myself, I'm from South Africa. I was born in Joburg, Johannesburg, and I grew up in Pretoria. It is not very much of a big city, but it was really interesting, the culture there, the people. And so when we came to the point where we had to decide what it is we were going to do and study, I was always drawn to the body and the mechanisms behind it, but I was very much not really amused by the black and white scene in the conventional medical world. I felt that it might not have been very fulfilling for me. And so I was doing a lot of research on alternative options. And then I found out about naturopathy. And the concept really made sense to me. It's completely logical. If we're going to treat the body, why don't we just treat the root cause? Why should we mask symptoms, you know? And so the more I started finding out what naturopathy is, what it has to offer, and how much it can really help people in many different facilities, not just in their physical well-being, but also their emotional well-being, also their mental well-being. So it was so holistic, so all-encompassing that it just made sense. It was just logical. And yeah, that's how I chose naturopathy.
But you knew from a very young age this is where you wanted to go. It was kind of your calling, right?
It
Because
felt like it.
a lot of people, they don't find this out until later on in life. You know, a lot of people kind of just go down a more conventional path, and then they kind of start questioning as they get older, or they find that through their own experiences. You know, I know naturopaths in the UK who trained as naturopaths when they were older because they were sick, or a member of their family or someone got ill, and they started to look at different perspectives and, you know, look at more holistic ways. I always find it interesting when someone knows exactly from a very young age that that's really what they want to do. I really see that as being vocational. So for you, it sounds like that's your calling. That's, you always knew that. that's
Feels
quite.
like it. Yeah, because I do agree with you. I see a lot of my colleagues, some that are a bit more advanced in the field, they started off conventionally and they started seeing issues with the way they were treating people. And it is usually encouraged when they start seeing issues within themselves that they can't solve, right? And they get so frustrated that they look for answers outside. And I'm glad that they have gone through that route because it made it so much more available for us to just do the research and find out about things like naturopathy.
Yeah, yeah. And so what took you to Chiva Som?
Chiva Som, It's
But
through
you
one
know,
of my friends.
to Thailand is quite a way, isn't it? It's like,
Yes, yes, yes. Such a long journey. What took me here? I am close friends with a very adventurous person, and her name is Tia Julius. We were studying together. She's also a naturopath, and she applied for like a whole host of different fields, different resorts, and one of them that she applied at was at Chiva Som. And so when she decided to go with another resort, they asked her, do you have anyone? And she passed through my CV, and Chiva Som reached out to me. We started talking, round of interviews, and
and
yeah, here we are.
there you are there living in Thailand. Amazing. Really interesting. So let's talk about the subject of naturopathy, because it's a big topic, right? It's like, tell us exactly what naturopathy is. I mean, I did mention in the newsletter I sent out that it is looking at the body holistically, looking at the root cause of of illnesses or disease rather than just treating the symptoms. But I just want to home in on something that I mentioned in that, about that the body has this innate ability to heal itself given the right circumstances. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's one of the bases of naturopathy is that the body has this ability to heal itself, and life always wants to progress in a direction that it can thrive in. So when the body has the right tools, when the body has been placed in a position where all the other obstacles in the way have been removed, then the natural tendency would be for the body to heal itself, right? So naturopathy encompasses so many aspects, but that's one of the core beliefs and values. And we try to make use of different natural ways to get this body in a state where it can move towards its actual true goal of sustaining and maintaining good health. And yeah, we do that through food, through supplements, lifestyle choices, the way we think, that can all contribute to health. But in the same way, it can also be stumbling blocks that lead us to a regressed state of health.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. So it's a big 360 approach, because a lot of people think naturopathy is just about plants, and because of the name, of course, you know,
Right, right, right.
it's nature and whatever. So people think, oh, it's just about herbs or plants, or, but it's much bigger than that, right?
It is much bigger than that. And something that naturopaths always have to remind themselves about, I always have to remind myself of this, is not using green conventional medicine. So we call that like green allopathy, where if someone comes with a array of symptoms, you prescribe them with a certain herb because, oh, this is your symptom, take this herb. And you have this certain symptom, here's a herb for you. Instead of dishing out natural ingredients in the same way, we try to find the root cause. So it's much deeper than just masking symptoms with nature. So we try to find out, why are these symptoms in your body? Why is it that you feel tired or sluggish all the time? Why is it that your mental state is not in a good place? Why do you have these skin issues? And when we find the why, then we can really treat the person holistically.
Interesting. So I'll just tell you a little story this morning. I always tell these little stories about my family. A lot of people who come along listen to this. My husband would be, if he ever watched this, he'd go crazy. But anyway, my husband's struggling with the cold, and it's apologies to any men present this morning, but it's what I call a man cold. It's like it doesn't get better very easily, and it's just endless. And he's, you know, he's kind of feeling sorry for himself quite a lot. And I said to him this morning, oh, I need you to do this and this. And he's like, I can't, I'm not well. And I said, maybe if you start thinking that you're better, you'll start feeling better. And he said, don't be ridiculous. That's not going to help me. And I said, well, interestingly enough, it will. Just give it a go. So I think you should take the dog for a walk and blah, 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 blah. But I give these little examples, these anecdotes, just to make a point about this, because there is this, this idea that the mind doesn't do anything, because you were talking about thinking, and it's like, like our body's separate from our brain, and look what our brain is, but our feelings and our thoughts and our emotions have no effect on our health. But you're saying in naturopathy that is taken into account, right?
That is definitely taken into account. And I find it funny that your husband has a man cold.
Yeah.
It's so common. Women just power through all kinds of illnesses. But I agree with you in that everything is holistic, everything is connected. But your husband is also correct, right? So both of you are correct.
Okay, tell me.
I won't tell him. I won't let him see this.
No, he's not going to watch this. He's not going to watch this. Anyway.
Okay.
But this is, I like to be corrected too. Yes, tell us.
Right. So definitely the mind plays a role in how we feel. Most times, if we decide to look at the positive, if we have gratitude in our hearts, then our bodies respond, and the cells in our bodies kind of listen in on our conversations that we have with ourselves and even with other people. And that can improve our well-being. But something else that happens is the body is not just listening to the mind, it's also listening to the food that we eat and the physical activity that we have. And so no amount of positive thinking can help if someone's primary issue is something chemical, something through their diet. Like if you don't have the correct nutrients, then the way you think won't do much for a certain condition,
Right.
So
And
yeah, it's all holistic.
It's a holistic.
It's a circle, yeah.
So you can't just have one element without the other elements. They all have to be included to have like this state of well-being, let's say, the state of wellness. So let's say somebody's got an issue and they come and see you. What's the process?
Okay, so normally we'll have a patient, but in this case, we normally have guests, and they come in on a very wide spectrum of health issues. So we have someone who is in perfectly good condition, they just want tweaks or ways to enhance their health. We have people come in and they're just, feeling a little bit off. Other people will come in and they just need a lot of help. They just are sick and tired of what they're going through, and they want answers, they want solutions. And so they'll come into the office and we ask such a lot of questions, okay? So it's almost like we are nosy. We want to hear everything. I always tell the guests to just tell me about their life in a way that makes me feel like I'm living with them. So we go through whatever their main complaint is. We really go in depth into it. We want to know when it started. We want to understand, for example, if someone comes in and they have a certain pain, we want to know what are the emotional events that started when this pain occurred. What else happened in your life? Did you experience any trauma? What is happening with your family? Like, it's really in depth. And then we go into asking them questions about, excuse me, their diets. That's very important. Any medication that they're on. We ask them about their lifestyle. So how much exercise they have, how much sleep, stress. We ask them about their bowel. Some people get really embarrassed here, and that's when we have to make them feel comfortable. Like, it's okay, it's okay. And we just go through all of these questions. And after that, we sit down with the guest or the patient and we work out a plan for them. So the plan is, it can seem quite simplistic because most people know what it is we have to do. You have to eat right, you have to exercise. But the more complex part comes into understanding how to make it real or how to make it applicable to you. So how do I put this information into practice for myself? Which means that a businessman will have a different plan compared to a single mom, right? And depending on your lifestyle, you might need a different plan to make it work for you. And that's basically how it goes. We give them recommendations on diet. We give them the recommendations on their lifestyle. We will also suggest some supplements. We also suggest some herbal recommendations. So it varies for each person. The same illnesses could have different plans. For example, two people with diabetes could have different ways that they need to address it, depending on the cause.
Give us an example of that. So if you, because this is so interesting, because when you go to a doctor, a regular, allopathic doctor, and you have diabetes type 2, for example, you're given one approach, okay? But you're saying here you could give two different perspectives, or you can give different perspectives. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so with the example of diabetes, if two people came with diabetes, let's say someone is a little bit younger and they have a regular diabetes, so their blood sugar is really high. Maybe they have hypertension and they have a bigger waist circumference, so increased weight. If someone had to come into our office and they've told us their history, and we understand that now their history is mainly linked to metabolic issues, which is connected to their food, right? They, excuse me, are eating a lot of processed foods, things high in sugar, high in fat, the typical way that we are used to understanding diabetes, lack of exercise, then the approach that we'd have with them would also be tailored to their lifestyle, right? So we have to consider if this is how to make it work for them in terms of their food and how to make it sustainable. And we would approach it more on their diet. So that would mean cutting out everything that's contributing to this disease state. And then it would mean using food as medicine. So using food and giving them the right suggestions with, increased vegetables, the good fats, the good protein, and even intermittent fasting could help someone with this kind of diabetes. But intermittent fasting would not help someone with a different kind of diabetes if that diabetes is linked to stress. So, right, if someone has high blood sugar and that's related to high cortisol, right? So when you have a lot of stress, you have a lot of cortisol. Cortisol's function is to increase blood sugar. So now you have increased blood sugar leading to diabetes. And so we will alter your diet, but we will give you a lot of tools to manage your stress as well. So it's two different approaches for the same problem.
That's fascinating, because yes, it's not a one size fits all at all, but you're finding all this out through your consultation. So your consultation takes a long time, right? I would imagine.
An hour, 30 minutes.
Yeah, right. Unfortunately, even if our health system allowed for that tailored approach, it's just not the time available, to be able to do that. It's just really interesting. How do you ensure compliance? Because you could put people on these plans, but people find it really hard to change habits, like if someone's lived a certain way, or there's also addictions to certain emotions or food types or whatever. There's all different types. So what's your approach around that?
Okay, so with compliance, I think it's important for practitioners to remember that we have very little control over what someone else does. And that's where we start to see that the power to actually live a healthier lifestyle lies in the individual and not really the practitioner. But we certainly try to help and make things easier. I think one of the best ways to ensure compliance would be to integrate these healthy habits into someone's normal routine already. So if someone enjoys or has this addiction of savory food, then we will try to recommend food that is a little bit savory, but just much healthier than what they're used to. So if someone is addicted to crackers, then we'll maybe recommend having like some carrots mixed with or dipped in some spicy avocado. And so you still feel like you're having something that satisfies that, but it's more health promoting. Another way that we try to ensure compliance is to make it practical, right? Sometimes it really takes small changes and nothing too extreme. If someone has, because some people do have two jobs, so it makes them feel like they have no time at all to live a healthy life. And then you might have to recommend like, oh, instead of cooking a meal for 2 hours in your busy schedule, how about you take one day of from your week and invest that into cooking for 3 or 4 days at a time. We also would recommend like food kits because there's such great places that offer healthy food instead of ordering all your food from Uber Eats. Then maybe you can just organize with a meal kit that's healthy or vegan or whatever the case is. So it's compliance, I think, really depends on first of all, the individual, how much are they willing to step outside of their comfort zone? And if they really are not able to make grand changes, then making it as similar to their lifestyle as possible. Yeah.
Great. There's a couple of questions that have come in, so we get these as, in chat. So let's address these as we, and then we'll come back to some other topics. So Mary says, if you were to recommend 3 simple things we could do to improve our health and energy as part of everyday life, what would they be?
Okay, so I am concerned that I'm going to sound like a broken record today, but the first thing you have to look at is what you're eating, right? Is anything that you're eating contributing to making you feel tired? Some things that could make you feel tired are foods high in sugar, food that is also quite high in fat, like the bad kind of fat. If you've ever had like this nice filling Sunday lunch, sometimes you feel really sleepy afterwards. So definitely check out what it is you eat. The second one,
sorry, can
yeah.
I just there, when you say food high in sugar, do you mean actual sugar or do you mean carbohydrates?
Yes, that is an excellent question. And so with food high in sugar, the first one would be the refined sugar. So we always think about sugar that we add into tea and coffee, which is also a good place to look. But the food that impacts you the most with regards to sugar is food that's refined. So that would be simple sugar or simple carbohydrates. And that's like, white bread, white rice, pasta, anything that you are getting in packages, even if it's not sweet. For example, crackers or chips, crisps. What else is there? These little snacks that you'd find in a packet, they are quite high in sugar. Fizzy drinks, fruit juices. Most people believe that fruit juices are quite healthy, but they are really, really high in sugar. So yeah,
Okay, thank you.
those are different kinds. And improving your energy levels. So definitely cutting out the bad food, increasing the good food. And that's vegetables. I feel like we know these things, but sometimes it's really challenging to practice, right? So vegetables. And I think a third one that could help you would be stimulants and things that help you to relax. So take a look at what you're having. If you're having any uppers or downers, like uppers like energy drinks or caffeine, anything that gives you this energy, or if you are taking anything too relaxing. So how much alcohol are you having, right? So those are things that can really go a long way with your energy levels. I hope that helps,
Yeah,
Mary.
that's all about diet though. Is there anything else?
Right. So the one that I think could also help with energy that we don't really focus on would be how much physical activity we have, right? So exercise, that goes a long way. And I think another one that you would do if you are already having this balanced lifestyle and still things are not working out for you, then it might be a good indication of your stress levels. Stress is so common, but it presents itself in many different ways. So if you are very stressed, then there are certain supplements that can help you as you develop the stress management techniques. Supplements like ashwagandha or supplements like ginseng, supplementing with vitamin B. Most people are very tired all the time, and that's because they have low vitamin B levels. Some people are very tired all the time because they have a little bit of iron. So checking if you've already covered the basis of nutrition and exercise, then you might have a deficiency.
Do you test when you're at Chiva Som, or even if you have like your own practice, do you test people to see where their levels are? Or are you going just from the symptoms? So are you doing like blood tests to see vitamin levels?
For the most part, we just go off of symptoms. Sometimes we can't see deficiencies when we look at people looking at their nails, but most times it's based off of their history. At Chiva Som, we do offer blood tests, and then people have a more comprehensive view of what's happening inside them. But for a regular session with a naturopath, you are likely to just go off from your symptoms.
Okay, okay. Mary, just to say, yes, hormones have a huge effect on our energy levels. We do have some specific videos that we've done on hormones on the website and on Wellbeing Escapes YouTube, so you can have a look there and see if you'll find them, and you can watch those too. Okay, Jane, this is a good question.
Yeah.
Hay fever. I felt that this morning too. So yeah, what is the, I mean, that's allergy. So it's kind of like an allergy. Does that step into a mild autoimmune? Not an autoimmune, but a mild, I'm just trying to think of the word. It is kind of autoimmune, isn't it? A very, very mild autoimmune.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that when it comes to immune issues, there's like a certain degree we might find ourselves in. And some people have an underactive immune system where they're constantly getting ill, like from the flu or colds all the time. And then there's another spectrum where the immune system is a bit overactive. And any small, like infiltrate, like pollen, for example, will trigger an immune response. So I definitely think it is somewhere in the spectrum, not an immune disorder, autoimmune disorder, but somewhere it's in the range there. And Jane is saying that she's been struggling with hay fever. Interesting.
So she said, I'm interested to see what like food she can have or supplements that can help her with this reaction, as you say, the body's reaction to the pollen.
Yes. Okay, so that is a good question. With food and supplementation, it's very important. And like you mentioned, Stella, the immune system has a very big, it's basically the core of this disorder. And with the immune system, we always have to keep in mind that the gut is the main central part of the immune system. So Jane, if you are aware of any intolerances that you might have, then that would be a good place to look into. If you have any intolerances, then you would have to cut them out. But if you don't know if you have any intolerances, then trying to eliminate the major intolerances that people have. There are about 8 of them. Things like wheat, so gluten is included into that. Dairy is included, eggs as well, and nuts. What else is there? Soy. Those are quite big food groups that people tend to have issues with. So if you remove that, then your gut will not be constantly being exposed to things that cause inflammation. So the reason the gut is very important is because it is like the first line of defense when it comes to our immune system. So if there's anything happening in the gut, it's going to present itself in the immune system as well. So for you, I'd recommend looking at foods that you might have to avoid. You might have to take an extra step, and besides just removing the processed food, but also looking at food that you might be intolerant to. And then after doing that, you have to do some intense gut healing. And you can do a lot of research on what food promotes good gut health. But among the top are the probiotic food and the prebiotic food. So the probiotic food would be food with live cultures in them, like kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha is also good with a lot of probiotics. And then the prebiotics are basically food that feed the good bacteria. So the probiotics are the bacteria, and then the prebiotics are food that feed these good bacteria. But as a rule of thumb, what you would have to look at is food that's high in fiber. Fiber feeds the bacteria. And so that's a way that you can start off the whole gut healing program in your body. And supplements, I would recommend something like echinacea. That one works really good with the immune system. Vitamin C and zinc. Zinc not only works well with the immune system, but it also helps to like insulate the gut lining. So it like coats the gut very well and kind of rebuilds this defense mechanism that was originally there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh gosh, we're getting into lots of individual issues here. Okay.
I hope that helps, Jane.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can't do a diagnostic clinic here for everyone, unfortunately, but we will we'll talk about these bigger issues. And yes, I think Jane, it is very much gut related. So I've suffered from the same thing. I would also recommend a detox around that, right? Like with is that am I off point there to say, like with hay fever, again, I'm just talking from personal experience. When I've done a detox, I've had a better season of the for the hay fever, because I guess you're healing your gut and through detoxification. Okay. Weight loss, menopause or stress in middle-aged women, intermittent fasting. A lot of weight gained around the middle for menopausal stress in middle-aged women. Would you recommend intermittent fasting for somebody like that?
Okay. Hey, Maureen. So with intermittent fasting, it depends on the person. I think that if you are in a very stressful period, I would not recommend intermittent fasting, because stress requires a lot of fuel. It takes a lot of energy to be in a stress state. There's so much happening in the body. So I wouldn't recommend that. But what I would recommend is just paying a closer or giving a little bit more TLC to your liver. Because when it comes to fat that accumulates around the waist, it usually stems from the liver being overloaded and just kind of like putting the fat in the surrounding area. The closest area would be the abdomen. So yeah, focusing more on detox, as Stella mentioned, could also help a lot, but also, eating a lot of bitters. Food that is naturally bitter has such a good effect on the liver. Things like apple cider vinegar in water or lime in water before every meal. I think that could be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. We'll come back to some of these other questions, but let's just talk a little bit about we've had some issues here. Are these the kind of issues that people come to you with?
Yes, they are, because yeah, they are quite common. They're quite common. I think people sometimes, we are different, so we have different expression of things, but in most cases, the body is able to kind of go off track a little bit in the same way, in a certain pattern. So yes, sometimes the immune disorders or this accumulation of fat in certain parts of the body, that's quite common. Yeah.
So is that,
and menopause is not just, sorry.
Oh, carry on.
No, I was just thinking that menopause is something that we do see quite often, but it's not really a disease state, right?
No.
It's not at all. Yeah.
It's just a way to change, and there's managing our way through that.
Yeah.
I would say it's interesting talking to lots of people in Asia, actually, in that part of the world, previously. There were less issues around menopause for women, and they had less issues than maybe women in the West, and it was to do with so many things, not just diet, but it's just the way we live as women, and our pace of life and all of those things. There's a lot of research around that. There's a lot of information around that too. So it's quite interesting about menopause, but that's a whole different subject. We can spend hours on menopause. Now, in terms of going to a naturopath, which are the symptoms, or not the symptoms, the diseases or the conditions that are best treated by a naturopath, would you say? I mean, you know, there's so many different diseases. Like you've mentioned, diabetes could be one. What other type of conditions are best treated by a naturopath?
Okay, so I think that there are certain conditions that you would want to go see a naturopath for, but something that we always try to encourage is that we don't have this war with conventional practitioners. So
Okay.
sometimes it might be a good option to have, your normal medical doctor that can help you much faster with the diagnostics and the tools and the referrals, or you can have a naturopath as an adjunct to your normal, treatment. And with what we deal with, I think most effectively are issues that affect the chemistry of people, because we focus a lot on food as medicine. So we see food as very much a very kind of delicious kind of chemical that you can use on yourself. And when it comes to metabolic issues, the hypertensions, the diabetes, dyslipidemia. So if your body's not metabolizing fat properly, we are very good with that. Inflammatory states. So if you have any kind of like itis, so the arthritis or anything that is related to inflammation, I think that naturopaths are very helpful. And that also ties in with inflammation of the thyroid, so thyroiditis, and hormonal issues. So those are kind of things that we tend to get a lot of guests talking about and asking about. But when it's time to see a naturopath, it can be quite broad. So any kind of primary health concern, something you'd go to the clinic for, acute or chronic, then you're more than welcome to see a naturopath.
So you see, so it's really complementary to allopathic medicine, or is it? Because on one hand, you're saying like allopathic medicine, like a regular doctor, you go and you're treated for the condition to stop the symptoms of the condition, but you're looking at the root cause. So I guess they're diagnosed through the regular doctor, and then I'm just trying to get into that a little bit.
No, that's a very valid question. I don't recommend having two, like going to a naturopath and going to a conventional doctor. I would recommend that you go to a naturopathic doctor to be treated more holistically. But if you are having a certain health condition that requires a bit more immediacy, then it would be best to go to conventional practitioners. Because if you require surgery, then that needs like an immediate treatment that sometimes we are not able to address in time. But even with more chronic conditions, you can still go to a naturopath. Like in the case of cancers, you can go to a naturopath. But when it comes to being able to track the disease progression or the remission, it is great to still see a specialist.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So really a lot of these metabolic diseases are things with the itis on the end, which is around inflammation. I didn't know that itis relates to inflammation a lot of the time, but these kind of conditions can be done. Okay. I am gonna, before we come back to these questions here, I just wanted to ask you, have you got any tips on naturopathic remedies we can easily use at home to kind of keep ourselves healthy?
Keeping yourself healthy. Yes, I do. It seems like, because I was reading Jane's texts, and I have a sense that a lot of women here are already very health conscious.
Yes, they are.
You're already you're doing a lot, and I'm sure it's reaping the benefits in some way. Even if you might not be able to perceive it, you are able to feel it in your body that you're probably much better off than you would have been if you hadn't been implementing these things that you do. So things that I would definitely encourage besides the basics, because sometimes people might want like a quick remedy without getting the basics sorted. So checking your diet, making sure the food is good, making sure the exercise is happening and the sleep is as optimal as it can be. On top of that, I would like to recommend that everyone is very conscious of the state of their mind. I think that's one of the most overlooked remedy that we have as naturopaths, because many people are so overwhelmed, so distressed, so sad. But when we turn our focus and we start to really address these emotional matters, it can be so beneficial to our physical health. And another thing I'd recommend, this is now a simple one, Epsom salt baths. I just want to make sure everyone has an Epsom salt bath because it's so helpful. Um, a lot of the population is a bit deficient in magnesium, but if you take an Epsom salt bath, you are able to absorb the magnesium through your skin. That helps your muscles to relax a bit more, because a lot of people are stressed, so they're clenched all the time. That can be very helpful. What else? It's also can address the inflammation in your joints, and it also helps you sleep better. So it's like shooting two birds with one stone. And something else that I've started to pick up on is many people are a little bit dehydrated. So the use of electrolytes can go quite a long way. So if you do find an electrolyte, I would suggest maybe something that is low in sugar and has, all the important stuff. So that's like potassium, that's magnesium, just trace amounts. And as a rule of thumb, you can look for electrolytes company that's like branded as keto, because then it doesn't have the sugar. But I think having a good electrolyte can help. And what else? Oh, aromatherapy. So if you are able to get your hands on some really nice essential oils and mix them in with the carrier oil, dab like a few drops on your wrist, underneath your nose, add it to a diffuser, that can help with your mind, your mental state, because it's a form of aromatherapy.
Great, thank you. So these are all, I mean, these are all, I think, tips that are excellent, and a lot of people know them, they just don't do them, right? They just don't do them because they're like, yeah, whatever, that's just basic. And everyone wants like the more sophisticated approach, like give me something specific that's gonna, but these are all, like we said, part of the circle. So it's quite interesting. Okay, let's come back to some of these questions. Elisa asks about ashwagandha and ginseng. And this is a good question. I've taken ashwagandha in the past. It didn't really suit me, I've got to say. It's not for everyone, I think. But can you give us any tips on ashwagandha and ginseng, and like she says, how much generally?
Yeah, so nothing is for everyone, like, because we're so different, and
Yes.
there is no cookie cutter way of, dealing with life, or of our diets even, and also of the supplements or herbs that we take. And with ashwagandha and ginseng, something that's important to note is they're both adaptogens, which means they help the body to adapt to stress. So an adaptogen is kind of like, if you think of the body being hit with stress, like let's say stress is a baseball bat, and an adaptogen is kind of like bubble wrapping the body. So you put bubble wrap all over the body. So when the stress comes and hits you, you are bubble wrapped. And it also nourishes the stress organs, the adrenal glands. So ashwagandha is more of a relaxing adaptogen, and ginseng is more of a stimulating adaptogen. There are different types of ginseng. The one I'm talking about is the Korean ginseng. Ashwagandha is known as the Indian ginseng, but both of them work differently. So if you're in a stress state where you are wired, right, you have all this energy and you are basically at a peak, this is the kind of people who will not be able to sleep because they're so stressed, so wired, then ashwagandha would be more helpful because it's more of a relaxing, soothing herb. We would not recommend Korean ginseng for a person, or Siberian ginseng either, for a person who is in a stress state where they are feeling energized already. So if you're already in this energized state, then we'd rather recommend ashwagandha and not ginseng, because the Siberian ginseng or the Korean ginseng will stimulate you. Siberian or Korean ginseng, sorry, I'm using them interchangeably here, but those energizing types of ginseng would be given to someone in a stress state where they're feeling depleted, where they're feeling down, where they don't have energy, they basically have adrenal fatigue. That's where you'd get the other types of ginseng and not ashwagandha. And the dose. Sorry,
yeah.
yeah.
No. And Shirley says that is it true that it can help with hot flushes? Ashwagandha. I don't know.
Ashwagandha can help with hot flashes if your hot flashes are related to a very
Stress.
irregulated, right, with stress. So if your hormone imbalances is further exacerbated by stress, then ashwagandha would definitely help. If your hormonal imbalances are not really triggered by stress, you're calm, you have great stress management techniques, you meditate, and you just keep a very calm mental well-being, then ashwagandha might not have much of an effect on you. But yeah.
Okay, that's great information. Thank you so much. That's really good to know the difference between those two. Rosie asks about vitamin B supplement for extremely dry, flaking nails over and above a good multivitamin. Like if you have flaky nails, what would you?
Okay, so flaking nails can be a sign of different deficiencies. I think some of the more well-known or common deficiency would be iron. Iron has an impact on your nails, and biotin also has an impact on your nails. And I think that's maybe why vitamin B might have been a good idea, because biotin is a type of vitamin B. And if I had to make a recommendation for dry, flaky nails, we need the whole story.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm I don't want to get too, we can't diagnose lots of things here. Honestly, everyone, I would recommend, if you're interested in this subject and you think this is something for you, I'd recommend you find a good naturopath in your area and actually go and see them. And then you can find all kinds of things about your own individual situations and get individualized approaches. I think this talk is very much about an introduction to naturopathy. What is it about? What it can or a holiday. Yes, go to Chiva Som. Go to Chiva Som and get to see patients. Yeah, but I think it's very difficult to diagnose through chat on a Zoom. A Zoom. I hope everyone can really understand that and agree to that. But look, patients, you've given us so much great information here, some good nuggets. And I see that as a basis really for, like I say, people to take that further if they want to go, if they, there a lot of the retreats do have naturopaths. Not all of them, but most of the good ones do. But Chiva Som was one of the first, as I said, and they had naturopaths before everyone else. I think, Rosie, it is very much about your individual situation. Because just finish off on that, patients, because you can't see Rosie's nails. You can't, you don't know what her lifestyle is. You don't know what her history is, all of that. So it's difficult to diagnose. And we're very finely tuned instruments, aren't we, as human beings?
Yeah. Rosie, one thing I feel I have to add is I think you are looking in the right direction, because oftentimes we have symptoms that are a result of some kind of deficiency. And if you have a deficiency, besides looking at the food that you want to eat, then it's good to also look at how you can supplement. So I definitely think With nails, it's usually related to supplements. Of course, there are very, very various reasons why nails can be flaking. But yes, I think a good place to start looking is what you could possibly be deficient in. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's a good place to look. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. It's been really, really interesting. This is such a huge subject, you know, and there's just so much to cover here, because if you think about like getting into the root cause of whatever is going on.
Right.
Last question, any book recommendations? Okay, that's
Any book recommendations? Oh, that's a nice question. For now, I'm really interested in the book that Dr. Mark Hyman just released. It's on longevity, but I can't remember the name.
Yes, it's called Aging, something Aging. So if you check out Dr. Mark Hyman, I have got like a crush on Dr. Mark Hyman because I think he's absolutely brilliant. Guys, you can find him on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook. He's also got a website, his own website, and he actually, I've signed up to his website, and he sends out every week a recipe, which they're really quite good, and they are very low carb, and they use lots of vegetables, but he uses it as a form of healing. His recipes are a form of healing. So sign up to him, he's really good. And then Sheena says Ranjan Chatterjee is and Dr. Mark Hyman. There you go. You see, they're wellness warriors, these people here. You know,
I can tell. I found the name of the book. It's called Young Forever. I would not sleep well without putting that out, but the name of the book is called Young Forever.
Yeah,
or Forever Young.
In fact, you've reminded me to go buy that as well, because he believes aging is you can lead like longevity. You can lead this like amazing life as you get older, and you're strong through your lifestyle, what you eat, and your mindset, and all of those things that we've discussed today. Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stella, and thank you, ladies.
Yes, I mean,
it was really nice speaking to you.
Yeah, and yeah, so much insight and information, as Annalisa says. So it's been brilliant. Have a great week ahead, everybody. A lovely weekend. Patience. Yes, thank you. Such great information, really, really brilliant. And we will record this. Well, it's recorded, we'll upload it over the next week, so you can always watch back, or you know, just get the clips that you want out of that. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Take care. Lots of love. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.